If you're a new insurance agent, just say no to selling Medicare and ACA health insurance. The reason I'm putting this video together is after several years of recruiting agents, specifically in the Medicare and ACA side of the business, I've come to realize that the vast majority of agents who start with these products end up failing for a number of unique reasons to these products. What we're going to do in today's video is explain, first of all, why I have this opinion that new agents should not sell Medicare and should not sell ACA, and give you kind of my rationale and explanation. Also explain to you what I think you should sell instead. And then lastly, explain the benefits of selling these products. And more importantly, as to when in your career you should absolutely consider selling them. My name is David Duford. I own Duford Insurance Group. I train agents nationally in final expense, selling in person or over the phone, utilizing our unique mentorship model. If you'd like to learn more, go to davidduford.com/FAQ. And if you'd like to attend these YouTube videos live as we record them, as well as get access to tons of scripts and different products like final expense, Medicare annuities, and ACA, go to davidduford.com/ISS, and you'll get access for free, no cost whatsoever, to our insurance sales success training site. It's a great place to start if you're new to the business or thinking about getting into the business, or maybe struggling and you're looking for some verifiably good training to help you sell more insurance and help more people. Okay, so let's clarify a few things before we get started here. I want everybody to understand this, very, very important. I think ACA and Medicare are great products to sell. I want to highlight very carefully and make sure that you all understand too, that when you sell or when you choose to sell these products is really where my concern in this video is going to lie. So what we teach agents, of course, in our agency at some point later in their career to pick up these products. But what I've seen as problems time and again is when agents preferentially start with these products because for a number of reasons, it appears to be a mass market product, appears easy to sell, et cetera. But there's some significant pitfalls to both of these products that make it a poor choice to start with as a new insurance agent. And we're going to go right into why that's the case right now. So the number one reason that I don't recommend new insurance agents to start their business with a focus in either Medicare or ACA, bottom line, is cash flow. You see, in case you don't know what cash flow is, think of it as the speed at which you make money. It's very important to make money quickly. I think we'd all agree, right? I like fast money. But the truth is that when you run an insurance business, like any other business, there are costs associated with doing business. And for the vast majority of us, in order to sell successfully, we have to have people to talk to. And there may be a few exceptions to this rule, but most of us out there are going to have to invest in some kind of lead generation program. Keyword invest. And that investment requires what? An ongoing weekly deposit of your money into a lead vendor's account to give you in exchange people to talk to who are interested in the product you're selling. The problem with using Medicare or with using ACA is that while these products make fantastic long-term residual income, the main issue is how are you going to pay your bills each and every month? I've recruited probably over 3,000 agents since I started in 2013. It's been 10 years since I began recruiting. And typically most agents get into this business because they need to make money like yesterday. They like the idea of making money largely passively. But the problem with that, when you look at the structure financially, and we're going to go into that, of course, of how these products work, is once you take in the commission you earn off the sale and then subtract out the cost of doing business, basically your leads, that's about 95% of your cost of doing business. It either leaves very little at the end of the month or even causes you in the first couple of months to lose money, maybe even longer. And with most agents being in a position financially that they need to make money like now, this is a bad business model to begin with. And for most new agents, not a good starting product. So let's break this down a little bit further because I think it's important to understand the math, because this is ultimately a math equation that most agents don't have the benefit of seeing when they're recruited into it and they're super excited and they think it's the greatest thing ever, but they don't see the math behind the problem. And you don't want to be at a position later in your career, 3 months, 6 months down the line, where it's like, I'm doing well making sales, but I'm not seeing the cash flow come in. So with Medicare, you've got two predominant products you can sell. You have Medicare Advantage and you have Medicare supplements. The vast majority of agents tend to nowadays predominantly sell Medicare Advantage products. And there's two commissionable ways to make money. The first is on a first time to Medicare Advantage sale. This is somebody who's never had a Medicare Advantage plan before. Currently at the filming of this video, it's subject to change in the future. The first year commission on a first time to Medicare plan is $600, $601 technically. Other states have higher household income levels, maybe a little higher in like Connecticut. I think California, New Jersey is another one. If you are replacing an existing Medicare Advantage plan, maybe they had Humana, but there's this new plan out from Devoted, and it has way better benefits, and you replace that. What you get paid as the agent is half of that $601, about $301, but prorated to when the plan starts. So let me describe what prorated means. Let's say you start the plan in July. The client's officially covered with Devoted in this example in July. Half the year is gone. So you only make half that commission up front. So instead of getting $301, you end up with $150. Does that make sense? So over time, there is a slow degradation of what the first year commission looks like on replacement of Medicare Advantage existing policies. And that's very important, as we'll describe here in a minute. And then Medicare supplements, which supplement existing in Medicare, original Medicare. Depends on what you sell, but estimates, it depends on the state too. Some are between $250 and $300 a year for 6 years. But look at your commission grid. Some states, I think like Missouri, pay more, but in a shorter period of time. So it does vary by state. So you're looking at somewhere between maybe 150 on the low end, maybe a little less than that too, to upwards of $600 up front as far as what possible first year commission you make. So here's the problem. When you take these numbers I've described, right, and you're in a position to where you apply this bill, you'll say you go through the learning process, you learn how to sell Medicare, you're selling supplements and Medicare Advantage. What percentage of your product sale mix is going to be one of those options? What happens for most agents is that their product mix is largely Medicare Advantage replacement sales, invariably the one that pays the least amount up front. Because it's very hard to get in front of T65. So T65 leads are people who are turning 65. You'll get those, but they're more difficult to sell. They're a much more aggressively targeted prospect. Sometimes it's a multi-step close situation where you can't get in a one-call close, like to turn the cash flow around quickly. And it's a little bit more of a more difficult environment for the newer agent to start. So it's usually not recommended. So those higher commissions that you would make selling a Medicare Advantage for the first time doesn't really happen to the same degree in a standard fare Medicare-oriented agent. And so what happens is you now have that, and then you now have to calculate what your cost of doing business is. So let's say you're doing direct mail leads. Direct mail, depending on the market, is somewhere between $35 and $55 a lead. Going to depend largely on your area, how well targeted it is or not. I've seen prices in the 30s. I've seen them in the 50s. But let's say it takes 1 out of 4 leads, which is being generous, to make a sale, and your price point is price point is $40 a lead. So in order to make a sale, I have to buy 4 leads, right? So I work 4 leads and I end up with 1 sale. Does that make sense? So we could otherwise say I've got to buy 4 leads at $40 each before I make a sale. So if we do the math, the cost of doing business is $40 times 4 leads. So the cost to acquire that client is $160. So now think about it. If you're writing that deal I just described in July, your first year commission is $150. Great, nice. But the cost to acquire that client was $160. You've lost $10 up front, which may not be a big deal because it's over time money that you're building. So if you break even, it's not necessarily a bad thing if you don't have money problems and you don't have bills to pay, which is not which is the case with the vast majority of agents out there. So the problem is, even in best case scenarios, where 3 out of 4 of your cases are going to be replacements of existing Medicare Advantage plans and it's earlier in the year, you may be clearing just a small amount of money. If you're clearing $100 per sale and you make 5 sales a week, that's $500 after expenses. And you end up at the end of the month with just $2,000. And then each month thereafter, the first year commission starts to drop. Now, there's some things you can do to enhance that, but it complicates the business model that much more. You could cross-sell final expense. You could cross-sell hospital indemnity plans. But as a newer agent, everything is extremely overwhelming because you're not just learning the product. You're also going to try to attempt to learn other products too, along with learning how to sell and learning the different variables of how these carriers works and following compliance. If you take something that's too complicated from the beginning to a neophyte agent and make it so overwhelming, they won't do it. And so this is why, from just a mathematical standpoint, not to mention just making it more complicated and could be, which is why Medicare to start with as a new agent just doesn't work for the vast majority of people coming in, and why I don't take agents anymore that just want to do Medicare, because it just doesn't work for most people. People greatly overestimate the amount of work and the amount of financial thin margins. In other words, your profit that you're going to realize in your first year. And what do we do instead? We'll talk about in a moment, but I want to bring in the topic of ACA health insurance, Obamacare, if you want, whatever you want to call it. It's even worse with ACA. You see, with Medicare, we're able to make some kind of upfront commission, but with ACA, you're only making what's called as earned commissions. So not that that's a bad thing over time, but up front, the problem is if you write, let's say, a single person, you're going to make, depending on the state, somewhere between $20 and $25. Some are way less, some are a little bit more. You know, it just depends on the state. But if you make $20 on that single person sale, that's $20 a month. Congratulations, next month you get paid a check for $20. Great. Well, what if it cost you $50 to acquire that client? You had to lose $30 up front. Granted, in 3 months, you'll have cleared $60 to cover that expense. But what if you're in a position from a business standpoint, from a personal standpoint, where you need money now? And then add a few zeros to that. If you're having to spend $5,000 to acquire clients that net you or provide a revenue of $2,000, you're in the hole for quite a while until you're in the profit. Okay, until you're in the green making money. And again, my experience is most agents can't do this because financials are so important to take care of your family, your mortgage, your other expenses, that waiting that long to get paid is really non-negotiable. Even though the product is great and it pays a great lifetime income, the timing in which you do it is really not a good idea for the vast majority of people. And again, like with Medicare, I do not recruit agents directly one-on-one to just sell ACA. From a business standpoint, to see agents who 90% of the time want to sell something, but just cannot make it work because financially they're so tight, understandably, no critique. It's just it's a business model that doesn't work. It's something that needs to be pursued later, which gets me to kind of my grander point here and kind of talking about what changes we've made in conjunction with allowing and teaching agents how to do Medicare and ACA. So what I've discovered, and I've made this change in my agency recently, is that most agents, whether they think so or not, need to start by selling a life insurance product as an insurance agent. And the number one reason is those concerns about low cash flow are inverted. Because with life insurance sales, you get paid a nice upfront commission. The residual income's not great. I mean, it's a couple bucks a month for life or for like 5 to 10 years, as long as the client continues to pay. But the upfront commission is really, really good. And for the same amount of work and sales you can make selling Medicare ACA, your upfront commission is much, much larger for a life insurance product, which means that you can better, more consistently support your own personal expenses and your own personal foray into the business than you can with a model that has lower upfront commissions and then a lower return on investment. So of course, what products are good? I think any life insurance product is really good, that as long as it has a system to generate leads on a scalable basis that all you have to do is buy the leads and then run the appointments or speak to people over the phone. Some agencies, especially the MLMs out there, like to do the mortgage protection route. Personally, for me, I like Final Expense. I think Final Expense is a great product in that there's so many more baby boomers retiring, so many more people getting to retirement, realizing they need some coverage to take care of their funeral expenses. And these are more and more clients entering our sphere of potentially working with for really the next 15 to 20 years. Baby boomers are retiring at age or turning 65, 10 to 11,000 a day for the next decade and a half to 2 decades, which means from a societal standpoint, there's just more old people, and more old people recognize the need for burial and life insurance. So that means it's a great opportunity for those agents who specialize in the final expense market. And it also means that it's easier to get leads, and therefore more leads, more potential for sales, higher net income. So I start my agents at DeFord Insurance Group, because of everything I've said, exclusively with Final Expense. Whether they want to sell over the phone or face-to-face, we've got mentors that will help them achieve the success that they're capable of. It works out wonderfully well. But we don't allow those agents to bring in ACA or bring in Medicare, at least for 6 to 12 months. Because first of all, some pro tips here, whether you sell Final Expense with me or anybody else or any other products, doesn't matter. The best advice I could give you to get started is pick one product and master the thing. Get really good at understanding the product, the underwriting advantages, the pricing differences, why the clients typically buy, understand your clients a lot, very, very well. And the more that you immerse yourself in that one thing, the better you're going to get. And truly, I think most people who make the most money in this business, as much as any others, are the specialists that do one thing extremely, extremely well at scaled up propensities. So I think it's smart to focus on one thing. And that's why I don't like my agents integrating Medicare ACA prematurely, because it starts to distract them from getting good at that one thing. What's also neat is that when you get good at Final Expense or mortgage protection sales, you're selling a highly intangible product. You have to die to get your hands on a life insurance payout, which means you can never do it. You're paying money into a system that you hope after you're dead pays off like the promise was made. It's a very difficult sale relative to selling something like health insurance or Medicare insurance, because our clients all understand they need that. It's been told to them their entire lives. It's an easier sell, and many of them don't cost anything to the client, needless to say. So it makes it very easy, whereas Final Expense or life insurance costs something, but there's no immediate gratification or payout. So why does that matter? Because getting good at selling Final Expense or mortgage protection gives you the ability to develop really good sales skills fundamentals. You'll know how to overcome objections really well by selling Final Expense or mortgage protection or any kind of life insurance. You'll know how to fact find your clients a lot better to figure out what their why is, what their emotional concerns are, and then paint the picture with what their concerns are with how your product solves the problem. And then position your product as to why it's the superior choice compared to the other options out there. And then last but not least, you'll know how to close your clients confidently and overcome their stalling smokescreen objections with finesse so that you can convert more clients and help more families. This skill set, while it's embedded initially just in the Final Expense or mortgage protection area or whatever it is that you're selling life insurance based, it continues to sell and give you opportunities as you migrate or integrate other products into your arsenal. If you're good at closing Final Expense, you're going to crush it selling Medicare. You're going to crush it selling ACA health insurance because you know how to sell. Whereas if you start with Medicare or you start with ACA, what I've seen time and again is that most agencies have no training whatsoever as far as product training or even salesmanship training. And a lot of agents lose the opportunities to closable Medicare and ACA prospects simply because they don't have the skill set to deal with their objections, with their concerns and issues. But you will get that more easily and rapidly selling a life insurance product like Final Expense. And then when you integrate those other products along the way, it's so much easier to do so because of your fundamental training that you originally got selling a life insurance-based product. Case in point, a couple of agents that started with Final Expense, then moved to Medicare. John Dean, I featured on my channel a couple of times. I think over the last 6 months, he's written 500, maybe almost 600 Medicare plans. Back in 2020, maybe even before, 2020, he was a final expense guy, writing 25, 30,000 a month. Then Evan McGuffey, who did final expense and then migrated to us with final expense, but now does Medicare with us. In his first 12 months, approximately, he wrote 600 Medicare Advantage plans. That's a lot of business. And a lot of that has to do with the fundamental training that both of them learned as final expense agents. And the other thing is that once you are good and understand a product, and you can kind of do it with one hand tied behind your back, blindfolded, that's when it's easier to pick up a secondary product and learn how that works and integrate that into your sales presentation. But trying to do all this up front at the same time, the problem with that is overwhelm. You think, oh, okay, I'm starting with final expense. Let me add Medicare immediately. That's just double the work. I'll be fine. It's not really. It's more like 10 times the work, because you've got to straddle between understanding Medicare, the nuances of the product, the sales process, compliance, along with understanding how to sell final expense, the objections you'll hear, overcoming the resistance, building a case as to why they need to buy today. That's too much for the average person to grapple with. And what ends up invariably happening is they just don't do anything. They waste a lot of people's time that want to see them do well. But because they're so confused as to where to start, in many cases, it's kind of failure to launch. So what we recommend, whether an agent joins the Ford Insurance Group or not, is, again, pick one product. Say no to everything else and say yes to the one product, final expense in our case, and give yourself the time to get really good. This business of making money in insurance sales is a marathon. It's not a sprint. There are stories of agents that have made, $500,000 in their first year. Probably not going to be you. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but let's get realistic. There is an element of this business, and I personally experience it as well, where you make more money in years 7 through 10 than you did in combination in years 1 through 7. That's what personally happened with me. I made okay money the first couple of years, and it was okay like years 3 through 6, like not bad. And then afterwards, years 8, 9, and 10, it shot up like the hockey stick. They have the hockey stick analogy to describe kind of this process of earning money and the scale at which it goes up. So long story short, this is a marathon business. Don't be in such a bum rush to pick up and do everything for everybody. Because if you try to be everything to everybody, you're going to be nobody. You're going to be nothing to nobody. And we want to not do that purposely. And you may find you may never implement adding another product on altogether. There's a lot of people that advocate, including myself to a certain degree, adding in Medicare or adding in ACA at some distant point in the future. But for every person that does that very well, I can think of other agents that don't sell anything other than their one primary product, and they absolutely crush it and make money hand over fist, way more than many of the agents who intelligently cross-sell a multitude of products. I can think of one gentleman who I met probably in 2015, 2016, Jim. He started his benefits enrollment business back in, probably the 80s, and scaled from himself operating with his wife to, I think, 150 employees, benefits enrollers. They figured out their niche, kind of going back to what we're talking about, into the school systems in South Carolina, got a nice in and serve a ton of school systems with their benefits enrollments. I don't know how much the guy makes, but I went into his mansion at one point. It was real nice and super cool. And yes, honey. Happy birthday. Great. All right. Awesome. My girl's birthday is May 7th. How old are you going to be, honey? 5. She can't wait. She wants a crawling baby doll for her birthday, right? Yes, she can't stop talking about it. Anyways, long story short, sometimes just being a specialist is the way to go to make money in this business. And there are plenty of examples of people who just do one thing really well and outstrip the people who cross-sell and do multitudes of things. And I think there's a case to be made, even long-term, to just focus on one thing and doing it well. If any of you watch any Alex Hormozi, highly recommended YouTuber, if you haven't already watched, he talks at length about getting deep into the one thing that you're really good at versus, I make a little bit of money with insurance. Now I'm going to invest in real estate, and then I'm going to do crypto, and I'm going to do, like, you're too broad and generic, and you'll never get the deep knowledge to specialize and really exponentialize your income. I think there's something to be said about that. So in short, I'm not saying no permanently to Medicare and ACA, but I'm saying no temporarily if you're brand new to the insurance business. Of course, you can do what you want. I'm not going to babysit you or yell at you. But my goal here is to provide you a different perspective that you really won't hear a lot from recruiters out there of these products. They want to, of course, recruit as many people as they can without really caring about what the consequences are in the short and long term. For me, I want you to survive. I want you to thrive in this business. And that means you have to take steps, thoughtful steps in a way that allows you to have the highest chances of success. And for me personally, I think if you're going to add in a residual component product like Medicare ACA, you need to first establish yourself with a life insurance product to make good money, to pay your bills up front in that first month, not sometime into the future, but make good cash flow up front while simultaneously learning how to sell. And then over time, typically 6 or 12 months later, start to integrate those other products in either Medicare or ACA and start to cross-sell to build up your residual income. It's a great idea to do, but it's something that you need to slow roll into. But first, before getting to that, allow yourself the opportunity to get good at one thing and master it and develop cash flow too, so that you're in a comfortable position to add in those other residual-based, lower income, but longer-term passive-based products. Hope you enjoyed today's training.